Ready Player One released to audiences on 3/29, just prior to the Easter weekend. Considering how many Easter eggs are in both the book and the movie, is this an intentional Easter egg itself? I'll let you all decide that. If you're not familiar with Ready Player One, it was written by Ernest Cline back in 2011 and released into the sci-fi genre to much acclaim. Although, like any book with a lot of acclaim, there was also a lot of hate for it. Regardless, the book overcame and has become a movie directed by none other than Steven Spielberg himself. And now that the movie is out, the movie too, is also getting somewhat acclaim. Some hate, but a lot of acclaim. Right now it stands at a 64 on Metacritic, which is pretty decent, and a 76 on Rotten Tomatoes, which is much more decent. If I were to give this movie an arbitrary score, I would rate it in the high 70s, low 80s for sure. But in this video, I'm gonna tell you why. So the story is set in 2044, and the world is a very different place. In fact, it's not such a nice place. Because it's such not a nice place, most people just spend their time inside a virtual reality world created by James Halliday called the Oasis. Inside the Oasis, they do everything from go to school to also collect artifacts in the style of like an MMO game. And that is where we meet the main character, Wade Watts, who's an 18-year-old who's not living the best life. He's a relatively normal kid until James Halliday passes away and leaves a massive treasure hunt for the whole world, with the end goal being you get control of the Oasis. You become the owner of the Oasis. So of course, everybody in the world wants control of the Oasis, including an evil corporation who wants to fill the Oasis full of advertisements and make a ton of money. I mean, of course we have to have a villain, right? So everyone is on this treasure hunt trying to figure out the clues and how to get past the first gate. Unfortunately, for 5 years, nobody can figure it out, including the big evil corporation who literally hires people to just figure out the clue, and they can't get it. Until our main character, Wade Watts, comes along and magically discovers the clue and gets the first key. This isn't really a spoiler because it's kind of like happens right away in both the book and the movie. Not right away, but fairly quickly. So with Wade Watts' name atop the leaderboards, actually his avatar's character name, his gamer tag is atop the leaderboards, not his actual character name. But that is when the adventure begins. The good versus the evil, the fight till the very end to get the last key and open the gate to get control over the Oasis. And this is where I'm going to stop explaining the plot. So while the concept and the whole plot is fairly formulaic and kind of basic, I mean, good versus evil, there's like a treasure hunt and some multiple steps along the way and characters, and we learn about the characters and their struggles. The thing that makes this story very precious, at least for me, is the fact that it relies heavily on nostalgia to give you a certain feeling for the past. James Halliday is a big fan of pop culture, specifically of 80s pop culture, movies, music, video games, all things entertainment. James Halliday is a big fan of, so he throws in these challenges to play Atari games, to follow the scenes of a movie, to know the lyrics of a song. And if you're like me, who is an 80s kid, yes, I'm a millennial, but I'm still born and raised in the 80s, then you can appreciate things like this. In fact, probably older generations can probably even appreciate it a little bit more, because I was a little young during some of this time period. But regardless, I think there's a lot of value for everybody here, because specifically in the movie, Steven Spielberg does a wonderful job of combining current pop culture within the movie, so it's not just focused on the 80s. And he does this by, in the movie, in the virtual reality Oasis, your avatar can be any character. And so we see characters like the Marines from Halo, and Tracer from Overwatch, and countless movies, the Iron Giant, all across the board. There are just so many cameos of awesome characters throughout the ages that I think a lot of us can really appreciate. And this is what the movie did right. They pulled on those heartstrings and till the very end. Now, to be completely honest, the book and the movie are very, very different in a lot of ways. The main concept of the story, the plot, the characters, the evil corporation, all of that Steven Spielberg did take from the book and put it in his movie. And the concept of the challenges and even the challenges themselves were from the book as well. But a lot of the specifics he changed. He changed how some of the characters are, how they're revealed, what happens to some of the characters. A lot of that changes. Also, the very first challenge in the book, it has Wade go on a solo mission into the depths of a cave and complete a quest in there. But that is a solo mission, and for a movie, it might be kind of slow and boring. So instead, the movie turns it into a race with awesome visual effects that are obvious for 3D, because this movie is done in 3D. I did not see it in 3D. I don't think you have to see it in 3D. However, I almost want to go back and see it again in 3D because I think this scene in particular and some of the others down the road would be pretty amazing. So the first challenge is more like a race, and so he definitely changes it up, obvious for character interaction and just have more cool things on screen. I can see how some would not appreciate that and may immediately realize that this movie is going to be different than the book. So if you like to stick to the books, then this movie might not be for you because it does stray so much. However, as I can kind of be okay with that, if the movie can stand alone and be good, then I'm perfectly okay with that. And so that is why the movie did work for me, because standalone, I enjoyed the book. The book does have some slow parts that I argue against and I'm not a big fan of. The movie doesn't have any of those. The movie is just go, 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 and an hour into the movie I took a look at my watch and I could not believe that an hour had already passed. It was just amazing how quickly time just flew in this movie. And this movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes long, so it's not short by any means. And if you really think about it, he had to cut a lot of stuff out of the book in order to fit it in this movie. This movie could have easily been a lot longer if he was going to add some of the details that he left out from the book. I'm not angry. So if you go to the movie expecting the book, you will be disappointed. However, if you go there with an open mind, wanting to see a fun popcorn flick type movie, and can just kind of let loose, enjoy it for what it is, then I do recommend it. The excitement just continues throughout the entire movie, and specifically because there are just so many Easter eggs. And I will tell you from experience, in my movie theater, the audience was soaking it up. They were laughing, they were, every time there was like a little thing that maybe not everybody got, you could hear like gasp and ahs, and it was just, people were having physical reactions to this movie out of pure enjoyment. One particular scene that I really enjoyed was the scene where they enter the movie The Shining, and it's one of the challenges, and I really enjoyed it in the book. It is in the book as well, and I'm a big fan of The Shining. I love the movie. I also love the book, and they're both very different too, so maybe one day I'll do a video on them, on the book and the movie of The Shining. But for this concept, or for this movie, I really enjoyed this whole scene. They made it very funny, and if you're familiar with The Shining, you know, don't open the elevator and don't go to room 237. So everyone in the movie theater that knows this about The Shining, we're all in on the joke, and it's just, oh, it was so touching in a lot of ways. I know it's so cheesy, I totally get that, but that is what's so endearing about it. So if you can't tell already, I highly recommend going to see this movie specifically in the movie theater. It was a fun ride. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Even if you maybe weren't a big fan of the book, you might actually like the movie more just because there's less of the book and the movie is more of a movie. So major props to Steven Spielberg for making all the right changes, making a great movie, a fantastic, fun ride that it doesn't matter when you grew up or if you're even familiar with these references. I think it's enjoyable for all ages. The movie takes what the book puts in our imaginations and puts it on the screen, and that ultimately is what we pay movie tickets for. Job well done. If you've seen the movie or read the book, then do let me know in the comments below. If you want to see more reviews like this where I compare the book and the movie, then do subscribe if you're not already. The next book that I will be reading, actually I'm not sure. I still have a Love, Simon video to post. I just haven't posted it yet. And then I have started reading Annihilation, which was a movie that came out not too long ago. So if you are familiar with Annihilation, then do let me know your thoughts and keep an eye out for that video. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.